He found it in a box he forgot he had. An old photograph, 37 years old, creased and faded. A father and son, smiling, arms around each other, but they hadn't spoken in 22 years. This is Thomas's story. A father who made one mistake, a son who couldn't forgive, and the moment that changed everything. December 1997, Boston, Massachusetts. Thomas Bennett was 35 years old, an architect, a father, a husband, but his marriage was falling apart. He and his wife, Sarah, had been fighting for months, about everything, about nothing. They'd grown apart, different paths, different dreams, different lives. And caught in the middle was their 16-year-old son, David. The night Thomas left, David was watching. He saw his father pack a suitcase, saw him walk to the door, saw him hesitate. Thomas turned back, looked at his son. "David, this isn't about you. Your mother and I, we just can't. Just go," David said. His voice was cold, empty. "I'll call you tomorrow. We'll talk. We'll figure this out." But David didn't respond. He just stared at the TV. Thomas stood there for a moment longer. Then he left. He didn't know that David would never forgive him. Thomas called the next day. David didn't answer. He called again the day after. And the day after that. For 3 months, he called every day. David never picked up. Finally, Sarah answered. "Thomas, you need to stop calling. David doesn't want to talk to you." "He's my son. I need to explain." "You left, Thomas. That's all he needed to know." The years passed. David grew up without his father. He graduated high school, went to college, got a job, built a life. Thomas tried to stay in touch. Birthday cards, Christmas presents, letters. David sent them all back, unopened. When David got married at 28, Thomas wasn't invited. When David's first child was born, Thomas learned about it from Sarah, not from his son. 22 years of silence, 22 years of regret. Thomas never stopped trying. He never stopped hoping that one day David would answer the phone. But he never did. March 2019. Thomas was 72 years old. He was cleaning out his attic, preparing to downsize, moving to a smaller place. That's when he found the box, labeled David Childhood. He'd packed it away 22 years ago. After David stopped talking to him, he couldn't bear to look at it. But now, sitting in that dusty attic, he opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. David as a baby, David's first steps, David's first day of school, Thomas and David at the park, at baseball games, at the beach. Memories Thomas had buried for 2 decades. And then he found it. The photograph. David was 8 years old. They were at a Red Sox game. Thomas had his arm around David's shoulder. Both of them were laughing. Thomas remembered that day. It was perfect. Just father and son. No problems, no tension. Just happiness. He stared at the photograph for a long time. And then he cried. For the first time in 22 years, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of what he'd lost. Thomas sat there for an hour, just holding that photograph. And then he made a decision. He picked up his phone, found David's number, the same number he'd been calling for 22 years. His hand was shaking. His heart was pounding. He won't answer, Thomas thought. He never answers. But he dialed anyway. The phone rang, once, twice, 3 times. Thomas was about to hang up. Then someone answered. "Hello?" It was David. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "David?" Thomas's voice was barely a whisper. "Dad," just one word. But it was enough. I found a photograph," Thomas said. "From when you were 8. The Red Sox game. Do you remember?" There was a long pause. "I remember," David said quietly. "I'm sorry," Thomas said. the words he'd been holding for 22 years. "I'm so sorry I left. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry for everything." David was silent. Then, "I have kids now, Dad. 2 boys. They keep asking about their grandfather." Thomas's breath caught. "You do? They deserve to know you, and maybe I do too. Again." 3 weeks later, Thomas drove to David's house. They sat in the living room, awkward at first. 22 years of silence doesn't disappear in one conversation. But slowly, they talked. About the past, about the pain, about the regrets. And David's sons came running in. "Grandpa!" they shouted. Thomas looked at David. "You told them?" "I told them their grandpa was coming to visit. That he'd been away for a long time. But he's here now." Thomas held his grandsons, and he showed them the photograph, the one that started everything. "This is your daddy," he said. "When he was your age." The boys looked at the photograph, then at Thomas, then at David. "You look happy," one of them said. Thomas looked at David. For the first time in 22 years, they were both smiling. "We were," Thomas said, "and we will be again. Sometimes it takes losing something to understand what it meant. Sometimes it takes 22 years to find the courage to try again. And sometimes all it takes is one photograph, one memory, one moment of hope. Just a moment."